gosh, ma'am.
What have I gotten into?
Are we live?
Yes, we are.
Yes, we are.
Live.
Better
Welcome,
be careful.
everybody. Welcome to our book study for Monday, August 24th, 2020. John Lavinia here with you and with Ivier, Jamie, Mark, Gail, Ace Man. Look at all these esteemed people. Oh my goodness, Adrian, Cyril's here twice. I see Cyril twice. We got Ingrid, excuse me, I can pronounce my R's. Ivier's here again. Oh, now all the orders getting jumbled around. Anyway, look at all these people we got here. Here are the people. Welcome, people. Glad you are here. I'm going to have a fun conversation with everyone here tonight because I was intending to get through the rest of As a Man Thinketh. And as you guys know, I'm packing and getting ready to move this week. And so lots of stuff going on. Plus I'm working with clients. Plus we got logistics and all kinds of stuff. And so I got through chapter 2, which was enough. And did everyone read chapter 2? Did you actually read this? I know a couple of you were listening to it on audiobook, which I have a little bit of a trouble with this particular book because it's older English. And I like to remind myself of the meaning of words and see how I would use them in sentences. Whenever I'm studying something that I actually care about understanding and applying, I make sure I look up words. And so this book is a bit older. We had a bit more of a vocabulary 100 years ago, apparently. But I read it again and I highlighted some stuff. I'm going to share it with you here tonight. And we're going to have, I think, one heck of a discussion on this because chapter 2 alone, my head exploded. I was like, I don't even need to read the rest of the book. I am complete right now just with what I just got from this guy, James Allen. And it happens every time I read this book, especially this chapter. So we're going to go ahead and finish the book next week with chapter 3 and beyond. We're already halfway through the book. But I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and then we're going to open this up for discussion. I think the best way to do this is I am just going to show you like some stuff that I highlighted so I can go right to it. Unfortunately, it's most of the chapter. I mean, there's so much in this chapter. It's like, yes, that. So let me say this. I'll preface this by saying James Allen hit one truth from so many different angles in this chapter. He's like, okay, well, here you go. How about this way? No, that's not getting through. How about this way? How about this way? This way. So he's gonna hit this one point throughout the chapter so many different ways that something's got to get in. And I think the people he was talking to, despite the fact that it was 1902, okay, the people he was talking to are the same thick-headed people like me, right, who needs to hear this stuff over and over and over again and see how it applies into my own life. Because we can all read scripture and we can all, and just the title of the book, As a Man Thinketh, is a little piece of scripture, right? As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Okay, great. Now what do you do with that? You just walk around and like spout off platitudes and sound like you know stuff because you can quote scripture? Right? How's this used in your life? Well, here's 100 different angles on how to use this in your life so that it actually gets through. And for that, James, hats off. And this chapter alone is why I've often said this book is worth 20 grand. So just park on this and you are going to have an interesting ride. So we covered the foreword or introduction and chapter 1 last week, thought and character. Here it comes. The effect of thought on circumstances. Circumstances, those things that people love to assign cause to. Those things that people love to blame for why they are or are not going in the direction they want to go in their lives. Now, if we remember, before we dig into this chapter, if we remember, well, in this case, my favorite definition of the idea of success, the word success, my favorite definition of that is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. The progressive realization of a worthy ideal, making progress. That doesn't mean perfection. That doesn't mean 100% fruition, right? Like we're done or something, okay? Realization, making real, okay? So progressively making something more real. What? A worthy to who? Worthy to me, right? There's a self-determined action. That's a causative, proactive action. Okay, what? Coming up with an ideal. An ideal. Can the ideal ever be fully realized? Can our purpose ever be completely fulfilled? Arguably, no. No, right? Otherwise, we'd be a poof of smoke and, fish and loaves and everything else. But if we're progressively making something more real that we deliberately are choosing to take action towards, we are a success. Having said that, circumstances, these things that keep showing up in our lives, whether we like it or not, pleasing or not, here we go. So in here, he's talking about how a man's mind may be likened to a garden. So here's the basic of all basics, which may be intelligently cultivated or allowed to run wild, but whether cultivated or neglected, it must and will bring forth. And here comes the dichotomy all through the chapter. He goes right for the core issue right here, which is cause and effect. That which Ralph Emerson, who was a contemporary or just a little bit before James Allen. Okay, so Ralph Emerson wrote his essays and everything back in the late 1800s. Around the same time, Johann Wolfgang von Goethe was running around in Germany with more mind-exploding thoughts. Okay, but it says here, the outer conditions of a person's life will always be found to be harmoniously related to his inner state. What did he just say when he said that? What he just said is, look in the mirror. If you're wondering why you've got the circumstances that you've got, look in the mirror to find who keeps showing up at the scene of the crime. You are cause. You are not effect. And right there, that's the first head explosion kind of a thing. Well, hold on a second. Hold on. You mean even those bad things that happen to me? No, look, I'm a victim. I've been victimized. Right? What, are you going to steal my victimhood? Certainly you can't say that I'm responsible for having been victimized. Can we? We could take this into down a few different roads. And I'm not here to tell you that bad things only happen to bad people. Bad things don't happen to good people. No, well, that's not what we're saying here. That's not what James Allen is saying. But he's introducing an idea, a law, and the law is cause and effect. You can't break the law. You can only break yourself against the law. And when we go into harmony with wrong thinking, or we could say when we go into disharmony in our thinking, when we try to work against the law, we find all kinds of disharmonic circumstances that show up in our lives. Okay, now he's gonna go ahead and put a Band-Aid on this here a little bit later in the chapter, but he's hitting it really hard right out of the gate. You are cause. Every man is where he is by the law of his being. Okay, so we're talking about law now, and usually, especially in modern times, we read books, and the one that I like to rip on a little bit is the John Maxwell, the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. All right, man. So who says they're irrefutable and who said they're laws? I mean, it sells books. I get it. It's marketing. Okay. But here he's talking about an actual law, cause and effect. The thoughts which he had built into his character have brought him there. So it's not about chance. It's not about luck. What's the old saying? Successful people are lucky. Just ask any failure. But all is the result of a law which cannot err. Okay, so he's talking here about feeling out of harmony. Let's go down a little bit further. Otherwise, I'm just going to read the whole damn chapter verbatim. Okay, so the soul attracts that which it secretly harbors, that which it loves, and also that which it fears. So right here, he's bringing up, here's another angle, everybody. Here's another angle, okay, is that we are in a state of resonance, which we could say love. Well, what is love? If you had to put some definitions on love, we could say that it's harmonious vibration. It's resonance. It's like getting onto a frequency. Okay, so let's say, for example, we had a transistor radio here in the room right now, and we turned it on. Okay, and we tuned it to a certain frequency, and that frequency happened to be playing insert music here, right, or talk radio or whatever it happens to be, right? Let's say arbitrarily it was rock and roll music. Okay, fine. And let's say that you liked rock and roll music, and so you would stay on that frequency. Okay. But isn't it true? Isn't it true that all the other music is also here in this room right now? Right. I mean, assuming we're in proximity and, notwithstanding, other limitations of radio waves and whatever, but you get the point, is that in this room right now is also the country music, the rap music, the the talk radio, right? Jazz. The only one you can experience is the one that you're in resonance with, on a harmonious vibration with, but it's all here right now. So there's nothing to create. All we've got to do is change the frequency or change the filter, talking again about creating success, the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. One of the things we must do if we're going to make something progressively more real is validate that with our attention. It's the quality of our attention that we put on pleasing or not pleasing things, the things that we are in love with or in fear over, the things that we are on that frequency with. It's those things that we must choose deliberately, or be at the whim of whatever circumstance is screaming the loudest. The soul attracts, the soul, meaning the being, that which is really causative, attracts that which it secretly harbors. So even though a person may run around and saying, I hate this, I'm a victim, I've got problems, okay? We secretly harbor this stuff, that which we love and also that which we fear. Is fear not also a very sticky, sort of experience that people have, a very passionate type emotion? He's talking about passion here. He's not talking about just mildly tuning into the frequency. Look at these words: love, fear. He didn't say, I kind of like it. Or he didn't just say, I have an aversion to it. He said, love and fear. That's why I read this word for word and I pick it apart, because there's so much depth in the words that he chose here. It reaches the height of its cherished aspirations. It falls to the level of its unchastened desires, and circumstances are the means by which the soul receives its own. So there's a via, right? There's the being, right? And then there's the result. Okay. And in between is the doingness and all the circumstances, the drama that leads up to the result, pleasing or unpleasing. But what result will it be? And maybe not instantaneously. Again, there's a via, there's drama that goes in between. Okay. But what result will it be? That which we are in resonance with, whether you like it or not, whether you admit it or not. This is a heavy trip. I mean, if we really get this, man, you mean I'm really responsible? Yeah. I can't just assign that somewhere else or play victim. No, I mean, I actually got to do something. And it's the hardest work there is. It's called thinking. A man does not come to the almshouse, right? That's the soup kitchen, so to speak, right? Or the jail. The original writing of this book, they spelled it G-A-O-L. Jail, G-A-O-L. So Old English there. By the tyranny of fate or circumstance, but by the pathway of groveling thoughts and base desires. Okay, so this is the path. If you want to walk this path, here's the path. It's easy to walk. It's groveling thoughts and base desires. It's going into agreement with things that do not help you progressively realize your worthy ideal. It's going into resonance with things that are counter to your intention. And look, we've all got intention and we've all got counter intention. And when we look at the anatomy of the problems that we actually experience and have to overcome in our own lives, it is that tension between, here's my idea of where I'm going and here's all the reasons why I don't think I can. That's the fight. That's the internal dialogue that causes that disharmony. Nor does a pure-minded man fall suddenly into crime by stress of any mere external force, right? So don't think that, this person, I don't know what happened. They turned down the wrong road. Woe is them. What a victim. No. It's very predictable, right? High integrity people do high integrity things. Okay. The criminal thought had long been secretly fostered in the heart, and the hour of opportunity revealed its gathered power. So we didn't become the criminal, the ne'er-do-well, the person of disharmony on a whim or by happenstance. This has been harbored for a time. There's an example I've sometimes used in workshops where I say, imagine a pair of balancing scales, like apothecary scales, where you got the, the product on one side and then the weights or the coins or whatever on the other, like in the old open air bazaar, right? And so you come, you decide, that's it. I am going to change the radio station, right? I'm going to get on a higher frequency here. I'm going to start thinking more prosperous thoughts. I'm going to start doing some personal development, right? And so you put a little pebble on the positive side of the scale, right? Because you did something deliberately. You took thought, right? You used inductive reasoning to start thinking, you know what, maybe I do have a future and maybe it's something that I could design. That's nice, okay? But for the last 20 years, you've been loading the weight on the negative side of the scale. And so you can't see any perceptible difference. Did the scale move? I can't see it move. But with your inner eye of understanding, with your intelligence, you could logically reason that, yeah, you know what, I have now started to balance that scale. And the more heavy you go on the positive side, the more rocks fall off the negative side, the faster you get to go, right? You start having some results. Okay. But it's not something you just do on a whim because there was nothing else playing on TV that night. It's about the chronic state, the more conditioned state. Habits beat heroics. Circumstance does not make the man. It reveals him to himself. So what have you been in harmonious vibration with up to this point? Well, look at your circumstances. Again, I've got to look in the mirror. I've had plenty of situations where I kept being the guy who just showed up at the scene of the crime again and again. You know what? I guess I can't blame anybody else. Right? What is this thing that's going on? Why am I experiencing lack limitation? Why have I missed the mark again? And quite often, we don't have necessarily the objectivity to look at ourselves and take accurate inventory. One of the other books that we'll definitely be studying is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, where he actually induces an exercise where you get with a confidant, someone who has good harmonious relations with you, and they want the best for you, and you ask them brutal questions. Tell me about this, tell me about that character trait of mine. What do you notice there? Right? And then shut up and listen, because you can't necessarily see if you're in the thick of it. Right? So circumstances not make the man, it reveals him to himself. Men do not, these are classic quotes, by the way, out of this book. I've heard so many like motivational speakers spout these off because they're just so sticky. Men do not attract that which they want, but that which they are. So one of the philosophies that I've expounded on throughout the years is just 3 words: be, do, and have. So you got to be something in order to do something, and then you got to do something in order to have something, right? So it's be, do, and have in that order. So what are we attracting? What do we have or not have? That which we want? Well, we could see plenty of evidences of, well, no, that's not the case. Otherwise, you could just say, I want stuff. I suppose you could do some form of prayer where God is like your cosmic bellboy, and he brings unto you, that which you ask for because you want it. Right? So no, you get what you are. He's going to get more into this later in the chapter. Okay. In fact, right here, his wishes and prayers are only gratified and answered when they harmonize with his thoughts and actions. So thoughts and feelings reveal who we're being. Actions reveal obviously what we're doing. And then the answered prayer, the demonstration, the delivery of the result, the circumstance, pleasing circumstance, right? The result, the success, right? So that is the having. So that's the direction it goes in. So how do you really ask? Here's the thing. I've heard this saying, and again, this is, in fact, this whole book is based on, a Western, Christian type teachings, right? So, but you could apply it, or you could see the parallels, I should say, in Eastern thought. I was just talking with someone earlier today about when I was spending time over at the ashram in New York, so all doing the Hindu thing, right? And so I don't care, what it says on the, on the scroll. Does this work in your life? Okay. And here's the thing that I realized, and I'm realizing it more and more. I haven't arrived. And it's the idea that this piece of scripture that says, ask and it shall be given you. You've all heard that, right? Ask and it shall be given you, seek and you shall find, knock and it shall be opened unto you, right? I'm thinking about, how do you ask? And of course, somebody's calling me right now, even though I'm on do not disturb mode. At least I think I am. So how do you ask? That's the question. How do you ask? If it's ask and it shall be given you. In fact, any of you ever read the book Conversations with God by Neil Donald Walsh? This is going back 20 something years. And he was experiencing lean times. He was broke, okay? And he was talking to God. And he said, God, you said, ask and it shall be given you. I've been asking for money. I keep saying, God, I want money. I want money. And you don't answer me. You have forsaken me. And he heard the answer. Oh, I've always answered you. Yeah. What do you mean you've answered me? I say, I want money. I'm broke. And God said, well, you said you want money. So you get to want money. There you go. Delivered right on schedule. You want money. Fantastic. Anything else? So how do we really ask? It's by getting in harmonious vibration. It's by raising the frequency. What is the most powerful emotion when it comes to wealth creation? I know everyone here is interested in being, doing, and having more in life, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't be in this conversation. Well, one example of that, one thing you could demonstrate is prosperity. Oh, well, that's cool. So how do you get on that vibration, if you will? What is the wealth creation emotion above all others? It's gratitude. Gratitude, because gratitude assumes what? That you have, not that you lack, not that you want. I'm so grateful for what I have. And if we can assume the posture of having this, right? Like it's already done, right? It'll be delivered right on schedule, right? We call that faith, right? If we do that, if we get in harmony with the idea of our wish fulfilled to the point where we can actually start to feel the feelings of it, that's who we're being. We're being the person who would have that, a grateful person. Another quote, not in this book, but it may be later in one of the chapters, or maybe it was in the first chapter. Draw nigh unto God, and he will draw nigh unto you. Nigh means near, near. Right? So experience gratitude. Think about this. If you're a child, right? The child is bitching and griping at their parents. I want this, I want that, right? Is that kid getting everything they want? Okay. Well, I guess if the parents just capitulate and, whatever. Okay. But I'll tell you what, you attract a whole lot more flies with honey than you do with vinegar, right? As the old saying goes, right? So I know my daughter can come to me, and she's learning this because she's in sales too. Apparently, Dad, I love you so much. Thank you so much for helping me with the thing with the schoolwork and whatever, right? Okay. You're quite welcome, right? And now, I was looking at that doll thing, not right now, but I'm thinking, once we move and, maybe I can have room for it over there, right? Do you think she's more inclined or less inclined to get the doll thing? Moving on. You see why this one chapter, I could just park for a week on this chapter. I'm going to speed this up so I can hear from you guys as well. Men are anxious to improve their circumstances, but are unwilling to improve themselves. They therefore remain bound. Here's another angle. Okay, so how can we be more causative? We all want the effect. We all want the riches, the results, the prosperous business, the whatever. Okay, so yeah, that's nice that you want that. Okay, what are you willing to do to get it? Well, I'm willing to learn logistical stuff. I'm here to get educated, and I will take a course, or I will go back to school, or I will do something. Or let's say you're working a job, right? I will do a little bit more. I'll stay a little bit longer, at the job, doing whatever isn't paying the bills enough already, right? I'll just do more of what isn't getting me where I want to go. So that's kind of looking very, very short-sightedly. A lot of times, because I've got a lot of experience in the online marketing space, teaching people certainly methods, nuts and bolts training kind of stuff. Okay, that's valid. That's good and right. Okay, but a lot of times I see where people will dismiss the idea of personal development, mindset, philosophy, psychology, making more of themselves, because they just want to get from A to B. So do I. I want to get from A to B. I want the fruit on the tree. but you got to plant the roots first. You got to plant the seeds. There's a season for sowing and there's a season for reaping. And you don't do both in the same season. And if someone, what did Ralph Emerson say? Of what use to make heroic vows of amendment if the same old lawbreaker is to keep them? So we've got to develop ourselves. Otherwise, all the how-to training in the world doesn't matter. Who's doing it? That's the bigger question. And that's what he's saying right here. So again, we're hitting this at another angle. You intend to be effective in your life? Okay, well, is it a causative person who's doing it? Or is it a person who will so easily be seduced back into effect type thinking, victim type thinking? Is that who we're betting on to do this? The same old lawbreaker? Oh, I'm not betting on that. Who are we signing up to do this job? You damn well better develop yourself. Okay. And then you don't need so much training if you figure stuff out. And you start attracting better circumstances. Mountains turn into molehills because of who you are. Interesting stuff. I don't mean to get like mystical or anything, but I've seen it work again and again in my life, and I've seen it not work when I haven't applied these principles or sought them out for use in my life on a consistent basis. Suffering is always the effect of wrong thought in some direction. Disharmony. Okay, so you're feeling like, out of harmony with yourself, with the law of your being, going against the flow. What's happening with that? That doesn't mean there isn't time. We talked about this in our general session this morning. That doesn't mean there isn't time to fight, right? There are certain times of high necessity level, right? You're in a burning building, right? You got adrenaline, use it, right? Move. Okay, so that's not terribly lofty. Okay, but there's times to move. But if we're living in a constant state of conflict and fight or flight, well, something is causing that. And what is causing that? Wrong thought in some direction. Who's responsible? Once again, right? Indigence. Oh, I love this. Indigence, that means you got no money. And indulgence, which means you're just constantly pigging out and wasteful. Indigence and indulgence are the two extremes of wretchedness. They are both equally unnatural and the result of mental disorder. So someone who's trying to fill a spiritual void with stuff, right? That sort of indulgence, or with incessant, calories or sex or whatever it is, indulgence, right? You can't fill that hole with external things, right? At the same time, so that's a mental disorder. At the same time, considering here we are, right, with some degree of free enterprise and the land of opportunity, and here we have the democratization of the internet, so we can publish, we can put good thought and value out into the marketplace. You can participate on Amazon and e-commerce platforms. There's all kinds of things you can do. So to remain indigent would also be the result of a mental disorder. Something's not working there. So we just hit it again from another angle, right? So look at these circumstances. There is such a thing as balance. Okay. There is such a thing as harmony and prosperity. All right. So just consider that as we get into this next section here, because he's about to drop the nuke. Law, not confusion, is the dominating principle in the universe. Justice, not injustice, is the soul and substance of life. This is back to the idea that you can't break the law. You can only break yourself against the law. Righteousness, not corruption, is the molding and moving force in the spiritual government of the world. So what he just said here is that there are laws that cannot be broken, no matter what corruption you see happening here in the laws of man or this or that, right? These temporary, temporal circumstances, right? But law, not confusion, is the dominating principle. It always comes back to that. I know we've got a lot of people right now who are very concerned with the state of society and governments and nations and all of this, right? And rightly so. Okay. But what he just said here basically is another way to say, peace, be still. Okay. Because the law always works. There may be some strife. There may be things that you see that are disharmonious, but you need to stay harmonious in your mind. You need to know that there are greater laws that cannot be broken. This is big. And if we're willing to do that, here's the proof. And this, I highlighted this in a different color because I'm just going to read this whole thing until I see this color again, because it is just, get ready. The proof of this truth is in every person. It therefore admits of easy investigation by systematic introspection and self-analysis. Let a man radically alter his thoughts, and he will be astonished at the rapid transformation it will affect in the material conditions of his life. What he's talking about right here is getting into a high necessity level, urgency kind of state. Like, you know what? Like, I've been a drunkard all my life, and now I've lost my family, my fortune, my respect, my dignity. And starting right now, I make the change. I seek help, right? My best thinking does not work. I am no longer going to assert my rightness. Let me radically alter my thoughts and let me look at what's workable in my life and watch the rapid transformation. I'll give you one more example and then we'll move on. Somebody's been trying to quit smoking for decades, let's say, and they keep going back and whatever, right? And one day they're in the doctor's office and the doctor said, you're going to be dead in 6 months if you keep doing this. 6 months. Person, a major emotional impact, right? Person goes home, throws out their cigarettes, never picks them up again. They are a non-smoker that fast. Impact, right? Emotional impact, high necessity level, urgency, movement, right? Definiteness of decision, cutting one's self off from any other possible outcome. Decision, decidere, the Latin root word, decidere, to cut off. Decidere, decision, a cutting off point. That's what he's talking about here. And you will be astonished at the rapid transformation. A lot of times people think, oh, it's going to take forever. No, it's not. A lot of times it takes people forever to make a damn decision. You want to kill a bunch of time and get nothing done? Do that. Men imagine that thought can be kept secret, but it cannot. It rapidly crystallizes into habit, and habit solidifies into circumstance. Bestial thoughts, like beast-like thoughts, crystallize into habits of drunkenness and sensuality, which solidify into circumstances of destitution and disease. Impure thoughts of every kind crystallize into enervate. Let me go ahead and look this one up again. Enervating, causing one to feel drained of energy or vitality. Cause someone to feel drained of energy or vitality. Weaken. Okay, you got that? So let me get the etymology here. Enervat, Latin, weakened by extraction of the sinews. Okay, there you go. Out of sinew. There you go. So enervating. Impure thoughts of every kind crystallize into enervating and confusing habits, which solidify into distracting and adverse circumstances. Thoughts of fear, doubt, and indecision crystallize into weak, unmanly, and irresolute habits, which solidify into circumstances of failure, indigence, and slavish dependence. Lazy thoughts crystallize into weak habits of uncleanliness and dishonesty, which solidify into circumstances of foulness and beggary. Hateful and condemnatory thoughts crystallize into habits of accusation and violence, which solidify into circumstances of injury and persecution. Selfish thoughts of all kinds crystallize into habits of self-seeking, which solidify into distressful circumstances. On the other hand, he just gave us a nice inventory there, didn't we? I mean, we can all take inventory now. Thank you, sir. All right, now pick me off the ground, please. On the other hand, beautiful thoughts of all kinds crystallize into habits of grace and kindliness, which solidify into genial and sunny circumstances. Genial means friendly. Pure thoughts crystallize into habits of temperance and self-control, which solidify into circumstances of repose and peace. Thoughts of courage, self-reliance, and decision crystallize into manly habits, which solidify into circumstances of success, plenty, and freedom. Energetic thoughts crystallize into habits of cleanliness and industry, which solidify into circumstances of pleasantness. Gentle and forgiving thoughts crystallize into habits of gentleness, which solidify into protective and preservative circumstances. Loving and unselfish thoughts, which solidify into circumstances of sure and abiding prosperity and true riches. So there's the inventory, right? In case you're wondering which direction you might be going in at any particular time during your day, right? Can we tilt that scale at least 51% in the direction of positive? It's work. Yeah, it's work, especially with all the very seductive appearances all around us. But here's the admonition, which we've quoted several times without even looking at the book in the past week, just in our sessions. A man cannot directly choose his circumstances, but he can choose his thoughts. And so indirectly, yet surely shape his circumstances. So back to the idea of you flagellating yourself because you've claimed victimhood in the past, or the idea that it's a complete absolute that, you know what, if something bad happened to you, well, then you're not such a good person after all. No, 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 no. Hold on just a second here. This is law. It can't be broken. And it's all on a gradient. It's all by degree. Back to the scales. We want to tilt those scales in the direction of pleasing circumstances. Well, fantastic. Start now. You can't choose the circumstances, right? And we can talk about karma and everything else, okay? And you know, lots of different thoughts and philosophy around that. But right here, what can we do right now? What part of this can I be responsible for? Me, now. It is choosing the right thoughts. That's it. That's why we've got the mental faculty known as will to choose the right thoughts consistently and habitually enough to the point where we actually get in resonance on a harmonious vibration with that which we want. And the more we validate that, and the more we're grateful for that in a spirit of gratitude and peace and faith, right? The more we experience that, the more we validate that, the bigger it gets, the more we make it real in our own lives. That which we validate expands. And yes, it has to do with our thoughts, our feelings, which then lead to our actions. And the next thing you know, we've got different circumstances. It's the upward spiral. If you've been on the downward spiral, read this chapter 500 times, whatever you got to do to snap out of it, and start looking at other examples in your midst. I think we're done. Yeah, there was the punchline right there. Other examples of people who are experiencing, good circumstances, resourceful living, or perhaps just experiencing, a bit more resilience, where those negative things roll like a water off a duck's back, or at least doesn't destroy them and devastate them. Right? Look at other examples of people that and they may not even know you're looking. Right? Look for mentorship. This person's going somewhere in their life. And I gotta. Wow, my goodness, I've been talking 37 minutes. I'm sorry, guys. I'm definitely gonna open the floor here, and we'll go a little bit late if you want. But when I was looking to clean up my life, because I cognited, oh my goodness, I'm a wreck. Right? My life wasn't working. I looked, and people didn't even know I was looking, but I saw people whose life was working, right? Well, he's a productive member of society. He's got a job, right? He's doing something good. Oh, he's got a good relationship. They're happily married. I never saw an example of that before. I grew up in broken home and abuse and everything else, poverty, lack, limitation. Oh my goodness. These people, without even knowing it, became my mentors. And what did I get from that? I got hope, which is a little kernel of hope. It's an on-ramp. The on-ramp to belief, and then faith and knowingness. Yeah, I can have that too. In fact, I could do even greater things. I didn't do it alone. So if you're part of the solution in other people's lives, and you can be, and hopefully you are, thank you, because people are looking. And you all inspire me. Just the fact that we show up here and have these conversations. If everyone who needed this conversation was in it, we'd blow up the damn internet. But they're not. But you are. So thank you. I'm going to go ahead and stop talking. 39 minutes just on one chapter, and I was trying to race through it. My goodness. What do you guys think about this? I see Adrian's got his hand up. Adrian, this is what's happening with you here? What do you think of all this? You're muted. Let's get you unmuted.
I'll risk diving in again, John. Yes, I mean, he talks about the garden. It's very interesting. I think we have to temper all this with patience. It's almost implicit in what he's saying that you won't always see the results of sowing the crop instantly. In the garden, the carrots come fairly quickly. That may not happen in this virtual garden. You have to be prepared to practice developing judgment over a very long period. you can't expect in this modern society of instant gratification to get instant results. And that is difficult because you have to learn to measure what you're practicing right now over a very long period. It may not be obvious that some of the things you are doing now and some of the things you're thinking right now will be the seeds that will grow something really worthwhile longer term. So it's quite a difficult thing to develop. You've got to be far more aware, I think, from what you're saying, of what you're doing over a long time.
Yeah, habits, right? But he also said in the chapter that radically changing your thoughts, like you're going to see it, like it's going to happen, and that comes with what? A lot of times it comes with having your back against the wall.
Yep.
The guy who finally quit smoking, right?
Yep.
Or I should say, finally decided he's a non-smoker after 20 years of trying to quit, right? Two completely different propositions there. So
Absolutely.
It doesn't have to take a long time. I think indecision is the thing that slows down and retards, evolution. So thank you, Adrian. Adrian's brilliant, you guys. Yeah. I'm just gonna keep giving you the every day. Where's Ace Man? Ace Man, I haven't heard from you in like 1,000 years. How you been, brother?
I'm good. This is probably the most difficult chapter I've read in forever, but I read it 2.5 times, and then I had to get on Mark's call. But it's really interesting, and basically, it's just everything we talk about this stuff every day. But you reap what you sow, and you can't receive unless you feel gratitude, right? So it's just, I just love this stuff. I don't know. I might have changed careers or something. I don't know. But like I've been in situations where my back was up against it, and I had to totally change to get out of it, right? Maybe not in a good way at the time, but it all ended up being positive. So it's just there is more information in this few pages than I think I've read in a long time, and you did a really good job of explaining that, because I picked up more details while you're explaining it. But thanks a lot. I just haven't shared for a long time, and I wanted to. So
Thank you, brother.
Yep.
Appreciate
Mark
it.
did a really good job today before this call.
Oh, good. Yeah. So we had our e-commerce work group, and Mark held down the fort. Thank you, Mark, for all that. Ace Man, I can tell you that I've read this chapter I don't know how many times, and I keep getting like James Allen is just rising out of the grave and kicking my ass every time I read it. So thank you, James.
Sure.
Yep. Good stuff. Speaking of Mark, look what the cat dragged in. Where's Mark?
When you were talking or reading through all that stuff, John, I wish I could show you the page of notes that I took, because I started to type in, are you reading from my notes? Because almost verbatim, all the all the bullet points I took came from all the stuff you highlighted. I don't know, there's divine intervention. But I want to show you something that I wrote down as you started your talk, and we had, before we went live, and I told you that I had one word that I thought this boiled down to for me. Do you see it?
Virtue.
I think for me, it all really boils down to, rightful thinking, and just, and if you look in the fine print right there, virtue and law. And that just set everything for me. So that's all I want to say.
Thank you, Mark. So glad you're here, my friend. And thank you for your coaching with the e-commerce group earlier. That is fantastic. What a great group of people we have here. Oh my goodness. Anybody else want to share something? Hopefully I didn't just put everyone to sleep. Hey, Tom, what's going on, buddy?
Hey, everybody. I haven't been in the daily group for a while, but I'm back. I know in the States, LA, Louisiana, there's some storms coming. And I'm in New Jersey, but I feel like I'm in the center of a storm all the time. But this chapter hit me pretty pretty hard, man. I think I was drawn here just to hear that. So I'm going to read that chapter like 1,000 times in the next few days, I think. I just wanted to speak up and say, hey, this is great. And I look forward to more of this. My schedule, I missed the workshop earlier or whatever was going on with Mark, but hopefully I can continue and participate. This is really good stuff.
Thank you, Tom. And we record every precious pearl of profundities that fall from our mouths, so you can always catch the recordings. Thank you for being here, man, all the way from New Jersey. And now let's go all the way to England. Where is Ivier? What's going on? She who does not sleep.
If I could take a photo to prove that I actually sleep and
I
post
know, we
it
just
on
have
the
fun with you, yeah.
because trust me, I do sleep. I think this chapter, just listening to, how you picked different sections out, what stood out for me was you might not necessarily be able to choose your circumstances, but you can control or choose or direct the thoughts you have about them. And that in the end shapes future circumstances. So, there might be other causes and other reasons why you face certain things. I mean, you have no control over the other party in the situation, so to speak. So it might be their baggage at play. But how you respond to that pretty much shapes the next thing you got to face, or the next hurdle you got to jump over. And so for me, I mean, that's just critical. And I've always just said, I mean, this is why I say to people, whatever the challenge is, bring it on, because I would always ask myself, what's the learning in this for me? Because through whether it's of our own doing or our own thoughts, there's always something. And if we take the learning from it, one, we can avoid not being there again. But two, we're all the better for it, because it makes our character stronger, better. And so that be the person, that you need to be to have and do and all of that, just completes that circuit. So I think for me, it's really important that regardless of how you got into the circumstance, just, how you think about it and how you respond to it is key. So that was a key takeaway for me. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Ivier, it brings up the idea of responsibility.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Good stuff, which is causative, right?
Yep. Yep.
There you go. Awesome. Well, let's go now to Janet, and then I see Ego. What's going on, Janet?
Hey, so, EVA, you just took the words that I had circled here. The quote. So as a calligrapher, I'm always looking at words, always looking for things to write. Circumstance does not make the man, it reveals it to himself. People go traveling around the world, and no matter where you go, there you are. You have got to face yourself no matter how much you want to run away. It's always there. So you got to face it. You've got to deal with it. You've got to work with it. And your thoughts and how you respond, not react, but how you respond to the situation shows your character and who you are, and right thoughts. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Janet.
That's
Beautiful
it.
stuff. What a great conversation tonight. And you look awesome in your library there. I mean, look at those books. I mean, now I'm complete.
And how about my icons? I paint icons too.
Yeah, that is great. Very nice. All right, good stuff. And then let's go to Ego. What's going on, Ego?
Hi everyone. So like I said in the chat, it does feel like Ivier read my notes, and then Janet actually also said the same thing. So, for me, what came to mind was our circumstances and how we actually respond to them. So the circumstances don't necessarily define us. And, when you think about the challenges or hurdles that we go through or that hit us, everyone has to go through something. We're either just coming out of it, we're either just going into it, or we're in the middle of it. In that process, it actually builds character. So for me, I see it as a pruning or refining process where the, that process actually cultivates our mindset, or let's just say a success mindset in this case. And that, in my opinion, propels us for greatness. Either greatness in how we deal with the circumstance, in how we help others, or how we actually see the situation. Because as a man thinketh, so is he, right? So, that whole refining, I think, I'd say we possess the power, the creative power, only after that realization that, we are in control of what happens or how we respond to what happens to us. And then that, as Alan says, we then become the master of our lives by doing so. I mean, there's so many areas to unpack, but that actually stood out for me.
Thank you, Ego. Huge insights there. Wow, you guys, anybody else? Any other thoughts on this? This is one of my favorite chapters in all of literature. And thank you for sharing it with me. This was a big night for me. This was big. Funny enough, I've had this. I've done book club things like this before in various forums, and anytime I've come to this chapter of this book, it's always been like breakthrough stuff, no matter how many times I've done it. So really glad that we got to do it here. Last call for anybody else before we let our Brits and our East Coasters get some sleep. Last call. I don't see any other hands up. I don't see any other mics unmuted. So with that, we will go ahead and wrap up for the evening. So I'll be back here with everyone on our general session tomorrow. Of course, if you're in Australia, that's today, later today. In the meantime, thank you guys. And if you have any requests at this point for the next book, I am open taking requests, because we're going to wrap up chapter 3 through the end of As a Man Thinketh next week. So read the rest of that if you haven't already, and we'll be back here next week to do this same show. Thank you guys. Have a great night. Be well. Bye for now.
Thank you. Thank you, John.